Is your election authority. Election day is Tuesday, and early voting has been underway across the Commonwealth, from a congressional showdown in Western Mass to a heated matchup for the coveted Oval Office. Springfield voters have been making their way in droves to City Hall to cast their ballots, and Western Mass News reporter Olivia Hickey joins us live in studio after catching up with some of them today.
To say the least, Abby, voters I spoke with say this election is a heated one, and they did not want to miss out. When Western Mass News stopped by Springfield City Hall Thursday, it was filled with voters both headed to the elections office to cast their ballot or walking away wearing "I voted" stickers with pride, including Michael Deandra and Michael Morin.
Feeling really motivated. I mean, it's really an important one, you know, especially for the president level.
For weeks, we've been watching the race for president heat up between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Now it's down to the wire. But it's not the only race local voters have their eyes on, as U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren is being challenged by Republican John Deaton, and incumbent Congressman Richard Neal is facing off with independent candidate Nadia Milliran. Voters we talked to tell Western Mass News they chose the candidates who say will tackle issues that matter to them.
A number of things are really important. Women's rights or reproductive rights is important. The whole idea of looking at our economy, especially in Springfield.
Meantime, the candidates are in their final days of campaigning, including Milliran in Springfield on Thursday. Neal, also in Springfield, tells us he spent the past weekend in Pittsburgh, door knocking for the Harris for President campaign.
I thought it went pretty well, and I think whether it's Allegheny County, Bucks County, or Delaware County, that's what you want to watch on election night.
Turning things back to the Bay State, let's take a look at the latest early voting numbers. Over 1.5 million people, or nearly 30% of registered voters, have cast their ballots already. So far, over 73% of mailed ballots have been returned, and 505,523 ballots have been cast through early in-person voting. Reporting in the studio for Western Mass News, I'm Olivia Hickey.